for the Weekly Planet Podcast show. So sit back, relax, and give us a go. Scott and Matt and maybe a guest have undertaken an epic pod quest. We're gonna ramble on about movies and books and television and film festivals and directors and all this other stuff that I really know nothing about because they made this really long list of things that they want to talk about and I can't even read through all of them, but it's gonna be great. Okay, start the show.
Hello, this is Matt Freeman, and welcome to the Daly Planet Podcast, where I'm joined as always by my co-host, Scott. Scott, how are you doing this week?
Hey, Matt, I'm doing pretty good. It was a great introduction. Well done.
Oh, thank you.
Just like to switch things up here.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you're having a good week.
Yeah. If you're listening to this, it's probably a Friday because we have moved the date of our podcast to drop on Friday mornings. We just decided it would be more fun that way, and that way you can listen to us driving home from work on Friday, so you'll be happy listening to us instead of sad like on Monday morning or midweek.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it's going to work out much better for everybody.
I do too. What are we here to talk about today, Matt? I forgot.
Well, I believe that the main thing we're going to talk about is director Innaritu. I don't actually know his first name. Alejandro Innaritu, and his most recent two movies, which you've seen both. Birdman and The Revenant. You just saw The Revenant, and I have seen Birdman, but not yet The Revenant. And I think that you have some pretty strong opinions about these movies and this director. Is that right?
I do. I do have very strong and kind of negative opinions. I feel like the last few podcasts I've been the guy that comes in with the negative opinions on stuff. I do like movies. We've just happened to be covering a fair amount of movies that I don't really like that much.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's hard to talk about. You're just, things that you like, you tend to just be like, yeah, it was good. And plus, we did talk about we talked about the old Star Wars movies.
That's true.
Pretty much just a lengthy love letter.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. So yeah, I saw the Revenant. Didn't like it very much. Revisited Birdman after I saw it, and my level of dislike for that movie remained about the same. So I'm interested in kind of bouncing my ideas off of you and seeing what you think about this stuff and seeing if maybe I'm being overly critical or if there's any merit to what I'm saying.
And I think that'd be a pretty good sounding board because I don't have a particular opinion about this director one way or the other. I think I enjoyed Birdman, but not powerfully, and I definitely see that it has some problems, so we definitely have a discussion.
Perfect.
But first, do we have some news items to go over?
We do have some news. As many people out there know, we lost two entertainers this week. First David Bowie on Sunday night, and then Alan Rickman. Was it this morning or I woke up to Rickman, so I'm not sure when it was announced.
I think it was this morning, but depends on your time zone, I guess.
Yeah. So I mean, I think there are celebrity deaths that I think you kind of expect to hit you hard. Like, I think when Sylvester Stallone dies, that's going to hit me pretty hard. When Steven Spielberg dies, that's going to hit me pretty hard. But then there are the ones you really didn't expect to hit you as hard as they did. That was kind of David Bowie with me. I don't know if you were still awake when the news broke. I couldn't sleep on Sunday night. So I was laying in bed watching the Nick Cage movie, Pay the Ghost, which by the way, is terrible, shockingly. And that's when the news broke, and I stayed awake for another 2 hours, just like laying in bed listening to Bowie songs. Like, I really was not expecting this. Like, I mean, I've grown up like hearing Bowie songs. Like, my dad played them a lot, but it was never like a huge part of my life. Like, I don't have all these really interesting how I discovered Bowie and how important he was to my life stories like people have been talking about all week. But man, it just bummed me out. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, it makes me want to kind of go on a journey of discovering Bowie, because I think I had sort of the normal amount of cultural osmosis exposure to Bowie, but he wasn't that big a part of my life. and it probably didn't even really I didn't even really understand who he was until I was going through all sort of the coverage of his death and came across this video of like an interview with him. I think it was from like the 90s, and he just comes across as being uh, extremely brilliant. And I was like, wow, I didn't realize that. I mean, I knew he was a great entertainer, but I didn't know that he was this. It just really made him a person in my mind instead of just like, oh, a celebrity face, you know. And that kind of changed things for me a little bit. But yeah, unfortunately I didn't really know much about Bowie, but now I'm interested, which is sort of a backwards way of going about it, I guess.
Yeah, it's funny that it's not until this kind of stuff happens that you start to think and appreciate these people's work and legacy. I think the cool thing about Bowie is he was the singer songwriter, but he also had a pretty big cinematic presence too. I mean, everyone knows Labyrinth, but he had a lot of weird like minor roles too that he would take, and he always did a great job in the character. Like we talked about The Prestige a few months ago, and I mean he's just randomly there as Tesla.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of what other movies he's just randomly in these minor roles like this. But he always nails it. And I mean, I don't think he was ever like a lead role, but he had such a presence that like Labyrinth, when I think about Labyrinth, I think about him, and there's so many crazy stuff that goes on in that movie, but for whatever reason, that's the thing that sticks out the most.
Yeah, I'm looking. Well, I was going to try to look at IMDb, but it's not cooperating. Actually, it looks like, I mean, IMDb, of course, has things that are not movies, and it's ridiculous because you just keep scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, and it never ends.
Yeah.
Because he's just made so many things over his life. Yeah, he was in Zoolander as himself.
Oh yeah, I forgot about Zoolander.
Uh, I'm trying to apparently a Twin Peaks episode.
Oh yeah. Man, see, it's all these things that I didn't even think about. That he was in The Hunger. He was really good in The Hunger. Man,
I don't recognize most of these things, but I'm sure they're classics. SpongeBob SquarePants.
he was. Jeez. Yeah, but I mean, it's just. I mean, he was. I don't think there was anyone quite like him. I don't think there's going to be anyone like him ever again. It's a really sad day, and one of those ones that I was not expecting. And then a few days later, also 69 years old, also dying of cancer, also British. We lost Alan Rickman yesterday.
Yeah,
And that was that. I'm not as surprised that one hit me because like I basically loved his work and everything he's done. He wasn't always in good movies, but he was always one of the best things about the movies he was in.
yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you.
I just
Sorry, go ahead. No, you go ahead.
I was gonna say I don't. I feel like that's going to hit me when I'm watching Galaxy Quest or something. Like gonna hit me really hard suddenly when I'm watching one of those movies. Like I just kind of sense that my mind has that trap loaded for me. If you know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm probably as soon as I get off the phone with you gonna lay down and watch Galaxy Quest. So, and maybe if I can't sleep, maybe Die Hard after that. But yeah, I mean, it's just they say that these celebrity deaths come in threes, so I don't know if there's gonna be another one after this. But it's been a rough few days.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think the greatest thing about we get to sit back now and we get to look at their legacy. And I mean, the great thing about movies is they're snapshots and they'll always be there. So his performances will always be there. We get to enjoy them for the rest of our lives. So, yeah.
And also neither of us won the lottery this week, so
yeah.
that's another tragedy.
If I had won the lottery, I probably would not be recording this podcast with you right now.
That's true.
I think I won $5. I think I got the Powerball number, and that's $5.
Oh.
But
Congratulations.
there was a a gas station like half a mile from my place that won $1 million. They're sold one of the $1 million tickets, like match the 5 numbers, but not the Powerball. And that's not the gas station I went to. And I bet if that was, then I would have won $1 million. And now I'm upset.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's far more upsetting than all these icons that
Yeah, so let's move on from depressing things and let's talk about the Oscars. Oh wait, that's the nominations for the I don't know what number the Academy Awards of whatever year came out today, and I don't want to get super political with this, but I was kind of unhappy with a lot of the nominations. I think all the acting categories for the last 2 years have just featured white performers when there's been a lot of great minority performances, especially this year. I mean, like, I could drop like a handful just off the top of my head thinking about it. So it's a little bummed to see that. I think there's like the thing with the Oscars, and I don't know how you feel, but they're really stupid. But I really like them. Like, I acknowledge that getting worked up about an award show is silly, but I also really like them, and the amount of importance that they're placed on in the world of Hollywood is really high. So you'd like to see it have a fair demographic, at least.
Yeah. I mean, it's a complicated thing to talk about. I think the Oscars, they're not just an award show. They're sort of a means of giving somebody's career a shot in the arm. You know, they do give people multiple Best Actor awards, but sometimes they'll give a Best Actor or Best Actress award to, you know, some young actor for the first time, and that just completely transforms their career. And so, in a sense, again, it's not just an award show, but it's a way of sort of elevating someone's career. And it does seem, I don't know, I don't want to get too political either, but it's like, if you're gonna, if that's sort of the auxiliary purpose of the awards, and you're not putting some effort into diversifying who you're choosing to put on the palette of people to elevate, then that seems a bit troublesome.
Yeah, and I don't think like people are setting out to intentionally do that, right? I think that it's not one of those explicitly, I want to exclude a certain minority from this award. I think it's just things that people don't even think about. And I think it's the fact that the Academy is primarily white old dudes. And so they're going to vote for the movies that they most identify with, which just so happen to be characters that are white. I think some of the most hilarious examples of this to me are the fact that you have a movie, Creed, that it was a really good movie. Black stars, black director. The white guy, Sylvester Stallone, who was excellent in it, is the only one nominated. Then you have a movie like Straight Outta Compton. Again, black director, black stars. The screenplay got nominated, which was written by a couple of white guys. And it's just, it's so funny that it seems like they're the only, we want to honor these movies, but we're going to specifically target the only white people that we can nominate for them, which I'm sure is not the case at all. But it's funny to see that and look at that.
Yeah, I agree. It seems like a bad coincidence.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we were talking about earlier how, you know, if the white population of the U.S., which is kind of the main market for movies, is 70% of the population, then, you know, by the laws of marketing, they don't market 70% of their movies to white people. They market 100% of their movies to white people, because that's how you make the most money.
Right.
So in that sense, like, well, the reason why all the white actors get nominated is because most of the movies that get all the funding behind them star white actors.
Yeah, and all the trades always push those performances above all the. Yeah, I mean, it's a whole system-wide issue. Yeah. It's not like there's not just a simple, like, flip a switch fix to it. But it is problematic. There were a lot of nominations that I really liked. I'm very excited for Brie Larson. She's got nominated for The Room, and she's apparently frontrunner for that, which that performance was awesome. I am happy for Sylvester Stallone. The Revenant got 12 nominations. It's leading all nominations. Second place was Mad Max, by the way, which is shocking and amazing. I think it'll win maybe one or two of those, but just the fact that it got that many nominations is awesome. But The Revenant got 12, and that's kind of the whole reason why I wanted to have this whole conversation with you, because I saw that movie this past weekend, and then I watched the Golden Globes, in which it won for Best Director and I think Best Picture drama, which the Golden Globes are even more of a joke than the Oscars, so that doesn't matter. But it all just kind of made me think. And then on top of that, these awards came out, and again, it leads the nominations. So I didn't like Birdman, and that went huge with the Oscars. I didn't really like this movie, and once again, it's being highly honored. So I want to kind of sit down and pick this movie apart and find out if maybe am I just being crazy? Like it's funny because this movie, to me, it seems like Birdman itself is a movie that people shouldn't like, because I think it's a movie that is very explicitly insulting everyone that would be watching or absorbing the movie. So I guess before we get into all that, though, what was your general reaction to Birdman? What was your response to it?
So it was probably, unfortunately, influenced by the fact that when I watched it, I knew that it had won every possible award, and it, was this great movie apparently. So I sort of had an expectation or a bias toward liking it, I should say. And I focused on the performances, and I focused mainly on Michael Keaton's performance, actually, and just kind of was impressed by his performance throughout the movie. And I love Edward Norton. You can put Edward Norton in anything, and I'm kind of a sucker for that. In the end of it, it was not a movie that I thought more about the next day. It didn't seem to be saying anything extremely powerful under the surface. It seemed actually to just be kind of confused under the surface. And ultimately, it was a movie that I enjoyed while watching and then kind of forgot about immediately. Those are my impressions.
That's a really fair assessment. So the way I want to approach this, I guess, is I want to try to figure out what the theme of Birdman was, because I think you're right that one of the biggest problems the movie has for me is that I'm not sure if the movie knows what its theme is, and I think it thinks it does. This is a movie that on the surface is very much about the act of creation of art, right? I mean, that's like it showcases people trying to put this play together and the struggles that this one character has to create art. And everything that stands in the way of creating art, which Innaritu very explicitly claims is basically everything. It's the audience, the media, the critics, the other actors who think they're too good for this but also are needed for the performance. It seems like he's saying that, and I think the Michael Keaton character, and you're right, I think it is a really good performance, but because he's the main central focus of the movie, and because the movie doesn't ever really switch from his perspective, you kind of have to assume, and maybe incorrectly, that he's a surrogate for the director, right?
Yeah, I think that's part of the problem is the movie kind of, I don't know, it speaks out of both sides of its mouth in a lot of ways. Like Michael Keaton is sort of the mouthpiece of the director, as you say, the mouthpiece of the storyteller, while also sort of being a character, like an object of ridicule and humor. And then sort of, he's sort of pathetic in a lot of ways, and it's I guess, yeah, I'm sort of fumbling here, because the thing is, and I don't know if you feel this way too, but I can't tell if this movie is just so much smarter than me that I'm just failing to grasp it, or if this movie is so confused that I can't make heads or tails of it because it doesn't know what it's saying. And hoping we can work that out in this conversation.
Yeah, so I think there are two potential outcomes to that. I think either the movie is just not very good and contradicts itself and is really confused in its themes, or Inarritu is one of the most brilliant geniuses in the world, and he created this movie that intentionally conflicts with itself to show the messy, dark side of what art is.
Hmm.
And I could maybe have understood that more, and we'll talk about this later. But after seeing Revenant, I really think it's just a confusing movie with confusing themes that is a little pretentious and thinks it's being this big important thing, but it really isn't. So to dive into the themes, the one big thing that this movie has against is superhero movies. It's very explicit in the whole fact that Michael Keaton's Birdman character, the fact over and over again it mentions how terrible these big blockbusters are. There's that one scene, I don't know if you remember it, where when his first actor gets hurt and he's trying to reach out and they're throwing out all these names that he wants to replace that one actor, and they're all just happen to be doing Superman or superhero movies. And the movie kind of plays that scene off as a joke, but then it really doesn't. I mean, it comes off as you're supposed to kind of think that's funny, as like, oh, these people are doing all these movies, but it genuinely seems to hate Hollywood and the Hollywood system and any kind of selling out type of movie, like any kind of, which I think I just, that pisses me off because obviously I like a lot of these superhero movies, but I think they can also be art in themselves.
Yeah.
So it comes off as very arrogant and pomp. He's basically saying art is what I think art is, and anything else is not. And that just it leaves you with this weird, angry tone.
I agree. The movie's very arrogant and sort of self-important about its own conception of art, or at least this character's conception of art, and then at the same time is extremely vague about what that actually means, to the point of contradicting itself in places, I think.
Yeah, because I mean, it seems like it wants to get down to the true what art is, and it kind of it uses the Edward Norton character to kind of represent that, at least I think. But then also it explicitly insults that character and pokes fun at him as if he's not good either. So I don't know what Inarritu's saying about what art is and isn't in this movie. And I think if he's going to make a movie about the importance and the struggle and the difficulties in creating real art, I think he's got to make that more clear. And I don't think that's us being stupid. I think that's the movie doesn't spell it out, or it just constantly contradicts itself.
Yeah, like I don't know. For some reason this keeps popping into my head. The critic, the woman critic who Michael Keaton kind of has an altercation with in the bar, and she tells him that she's going to write a bad review, even though she hasn't seen the play yet, because she just dislikes him basically. Then he kind of blows up on her, and then at the end of the movie, spoilers, when he shoots his nose off, which he basically does because he's gone crazy. She takes that as like an indication that this is true art and this is like this new form of art that he's invented. And I wasn't sure what the movie was trying to say with that. Like, it's sort of okay on one level, on sort of the immediate level, it's comedic because it's like, oh, okay, I get it. It's, you've got the you've got the you got the critic saying ridiculous types of things that you expect the critic to say, but deeper than that, it's like, wait a minute. So the critic are we supposed to be glad that the critic came around? But Michael Keaton shot his nose off. So, but he did it because he was crazy, not because he was a real artist. Or is that what a real artist is? Wait a minute, movie. What are you?
Yeah,
What
well,
exactly?
you're right, you're absolutely right. It tries to do both. It tries to say that it's saying, look how stupid critics are. Even this stupid thing makes the critic like my play. But at the same time, it's saying that the stupid thing he did was actual real art. And I think especially, and I'm jumping ahead of myself, but we'll get back to it. I think it's that message is especially true. The ultra real cinema or the ultra real experience is what creates art is especially true when you look at what he did next, which is The Revenant. So you're absolutely right. It can't be both things. Either we're making fun of the critic or we're saying that is the only way to truly perform and express yourself, is to have it be real like that. And also, he shot himself in the head. I don't understand how he shot his nose off. I don't get that.
I mean, yeah. I guess that didn't take me out of the movie in the moment, but I guess he just missed.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, the whole thing is so he can take off the bandage and then see the nose is basically the bird nose, and he's become the Birdman. But then, like, either kills himself or flies away, or some really nebulous ending that you're just supposed to be awed by, even though in or out of context, I don't understand what that ending was trying to say. I don't get it at all.
Right, exactly, because if he killed himself, he wouldn't choose to kill him. Yeah, it's completely confused because, like, okay, if he actually turned into Birdman, then that just makes no sense. If he killed himself on purpose because he was so depressed or whatever, that doesn't really follow from the rest of the movie. Like and if he thought he was Birdman and was delusional and then jumped out the window, that's just depressing. So it's like it doesn't quite work as an ending, no matter what.
Well, yeah, and I'm okay. Like, I'm okay with ambiguous endings that don't have a clear answer, but it at least has to tie in thematically to something. Like the whole movie spends time showing us that every time he thinks he's in these Birdman illusions, that it's definitely fake. Like, it takes time to show us that when he goes flying through the city and touches down right in front of the theater, it shows that he walked out of a cab and didn't pay the cabbie. It definitely means to take time to show you everything that you're seeing through his perspective might be a little skewed and might not be exactly what's happening. But then we have that scene where he jumps out of the window and his daughter looks out the window, looks down, doesn't freak out, looks up, and is in awe of something. And I just don't know, like, what. It's vague to the point of no one. I mean, that's supposed to be that's your conceit of the movie. That's your final. This is what it was all about moment, and what it was all about is nothing.
We don't know. We have no idea. Yeah, it's sort of like it reminds me a little bit of magical realism, where magical, kind of unrealistic things are happening and they're woven into the story, and you're okay with it because it's necessary for the story to exist. Again, it's the conceit of the story, so you just accept it. But here, we're not even clear, at least, on what our conceits are, and so we just don't understand. It's weird talking about this because I feel like I'm just missing something. I feel like someone could explain this to me in a way that I would be like, oh, at least I understand what he was trying to say. But I don't even know what he was trying to say, honestly.
I tried really hard. I mean, I watched this not like casually sitting down watching a movie. I sat there and really like actively watched this movie to try to draw some kind of conclusion, and I got nothing. And I think that's almost what the movie is, because you look at the cinematography, which is, I think, honestly, besides the performances, why this movie won all the awards that it did, which we haven't even talked about that. The fact that it's shot to look like one continuous scene. It's interesting to me on a couple levels. It's interesting to me because this is Innaritu making a movie about the purity of art and how it all should be real, and he centralized his movie around a gimmick that is faked. because this was not a continuous take movie. They hide cuts very well, but there are many cuts in this movie. Even within scenes, there are cuts, not just cuts from scene to scene, but they just do a very good job masking it with like the camera moving against a black wall or just a really expertly done edited cut. So it's all an illusion, and that's to me what the movie kind of is. And I don't know if that's intentional or not. I mean, maybe it is, but it's so confusing.
Yeah, I feel like this is a good movie interspersed with a crappy movie. Because you started off mentioning about like these kind of weird angry vibes about railing against the Hollywood system, and I think this could have been a much better movie actually if the movie clearly took the position, in a clearer manner than it did in its current form, that Michael Keaton is like a damaged soul, and Michael Keaton's character alone is just bitter and embittered by the world and isn't necessarily right, and do it kind of more like Death of a Salesman for some reason comes to mind, where Michael Keaton is just entirely a tragic character, and that way it would recontextualize all of his bitterness and anger as just like tragic instead of like righteous. And then at least if you kill him at the end, at least it's like, okay, well, it's a tragedy, but it's not just kind of like, I don't know what to feel because I don't even understand if he's dead, or what exactly.
Yeah, and it's so interesting because I think that the reason we can't contextualize the character, Michael Keaton's character, is because we're in his head for so much of the movie. So the movie never steps back to view his actions from another angle because we're always in his head. So we're always like implicitly supporting everything he does, whether it's the sad maudlin speeches he gives where we want to support him in those moments, or the weird rants and tangents and terrible things he says where we probably don't want to support him in these moments, but because everything's from his perspective, we kind of do. And the movie seems very scared by everything. I mean, like it explicitly talks about how he hates Twitter and like social media, and like it feels very much like an old guy scared of change and new stuff, and every character kind of reflects that.
I think that's very critical. Is like the movie is sort of looking at you and kind of like nudging. I mean, like, yeah, Twitter, yeah, man, Twitter's stupid, right? Instead of just showing the characters and then letting you be like, these people seem very insecure. These actors all seem very kind of self-absorbed and insecure.
Right.
Yeah. And like, that's another thing that I don't get is like the play that they're giving, especially like in the first half of the movie. I felt like it was intentionally supposed to be a terrible play. Because I mean, do you agree? Like I thought that was the joke, was that it was going to be a terrible play because it had a terrible script and it was just garbage through and through. And then maybe probably the one part of the movie that I liked the most was how Michael Keaton's acting changes, because you see him play the same scenes multiple times.
Right.
And his acting changes each time as he's sort of going through different things personally, until the last one where it's like, probably Oscar worthy acting, because he's so destroyed that he's basically just being himself. And that should have been the core of the movie, is like, this actor is putting his heart and soul into this crappy play, and it's a crappy play. Like that should have been the story. You know what I mean?
Right. But it's not. It's like they didn't want to commit to that, and instead they made it seem like it was the only kind of worthwhile art, and the only reason it would be perceived as crappy is because everything from the audience to the critics to the media doesn't really care about the art. and therefore wouldn't understand it. But you're right. I mean, like the scenes, every scene we see is pretty pretty awful, and it's almost so on the nose. Like the dialogue in the play echoes everything that the character's going through, like so on the nose that it's almost hilarious. Like this is probably the best example of subtext as text I've seen in a movie, which is hilarious because the themes of the movie are so confused, even though everyone says what they're thinking. Like that's it. It's crazy to me. I don't understand this movie, and I don't understand the reaction to it. Like I said at the beginning, it feels to me like if you're a critic, how could you watch this movie and not hate it? Because it's explicitly saying that you and your job is stupid and meaningless, and that's I think the film thinks it's satire. I really do, and I think on the page it might have been satire, but I think Innaritu as a director takes things very seriously, and he's very straight with how he films stuff and serious, and so I think the satire part of it got missed somehow. And I think you can insult an entire industry, but you kind of have to do it with a wink, right? Or it becomes off hateful. And I just think the wink isn't there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's like, who are we winking at? I don't know. I agree. It makes you feel sort of looked down on as an audience member, as someone who tries to consume art with kind of a critical mindset. Because really, like, it's one thing to say that you hate like newspaper critics because they're so egotistical and they make these pronouncements. But the movie doesn't quite stop there. The movie implies that anyone who would dare to like pass judgment on someone else's art is a phony. And I'm like, well, wait, I mean, everyone, like, our art is an interaction between the viewer and the artist. And like, it's not, the artist is not this holy thing sort of like giving you the art in its pure platonic form. So I don't even know what you're like, have you even thought these things through, director? I don't know.
There's a little piece of paper on the mirror that in Keaton's dressing room, and it says, and the movie almost opens up on it. I think it opens up on him in the middle of the room, and then one of the first camera movements is to show this in the background, and it says, "A thing is a thing, not what is said of the thing." And I think that's Innaritu's whole thing on art, is that what's said about it doesn't matter. It's just what it is. And I think that's wrong. I think what's said about it is almost as important about what the thing is in the first place. That's fundamentally a misunderstanding of what art is to me. And I think that's what he as a director think, or at least the movie to me shows that.
Yeah, I'm not a postmodernist who will say that the intent of the author is irrelevant, but I will say that artists very often fail to convey their intent, and then it's fair game to try to find some meaning in their work. So, and that's the thing, is there's no right answer to this. There's no fact of the matter to what art is.
Right.
It's not a physical thing. It's just humans interacting with each other in a complicated way. So
which is why his kind of pretentious dismissal of any other kind of art, like of any blockbuster movie, can't ever have something to say that's interesting. Is just to me I don't like the word pretentious, because I get called pretentious a lot, because I think anytime you look at something critical, people are like, "Oh, you're thinking too much," whatever. But this movie comes off as super pretentious, because it's not just art; it's very specific to his art only. Is in his mind the only acceptable thing. Go ahead. You listen to interviews with him, and I think that's absolutely what he thinks. And I think maybe he thinks he's being tongue-in-cheek, but it's not how it comes off. And if that was the intent, then I think the movie failed to convey that. Yeah,
and not to repeat myself, but that's kind of the thing is, first of all, the movie comes off as hateful in that particular way, and then you're left confused as to whether it was intending to come off as hateful, or whether it was intending to be mocking the characters who were being hateful.
Right.
And it's like, well, that's not the good kind of ambiguity. That's the confusing kind of ambiguity. So you fail. You fail at that.
Yeah, you failed. That being said, Michael Keaton, really, really great performance.
Yeah.
I actually liked. Oh crap! I just blanked on her name. I really should. Who's
that
the
one
girl?
actress?
Yeah. What is
I
her
don't know.
name?
I don't know. I'm now so old that all working actresses are at least 10 years younger than me, and so I don't know who they are anymore.
Please keep talking while I IMDb and get really mad at myself for not knowing Emma Stone. Jesus.
Emma Stone.
Jesus. Yeah. She was really great. I actually thought she had one of the best performances in the movie. It felt the most acting and the least. I don't even know what the right word is, but it felt like a performance to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I haven't seen the movie in a while, so I don't actually remember details down to that level. But I think the performances are all really good.
Yeah. So I think I thought all this stuff, and then I wasn't sure how I felt, because like it's, like you think these things, and then you talk to people that really like the movie, and they have very valid reasons for liking the movie, and then you see how it's honored, and you start to kind of doubt yourself. When I saw The Revenant this weekend, I think it kind of confirmed everything that I thought, in a very unfortunate kind of way. I don't want to spoil this movie for you or the people listening, because it just came out and I don't want to spoil it. So I'm not going to spoil the entire movie. But The Revenant feels like very much a natural... it feels like in the process of making Birdman, Innaritu discovered what real art was, and then made The Revenant as a reflection of that. Because this movie is all about reality, hyper-reality, in creation of art. They went out into the middle of the wilderness. They filmed it entirely outdoors. They filmed it entirely with natural light, except for a couple scenes. They put Leonardo DiCaprio through hell for the sake of a performance, and now they're toting this movie in, showing it as this great accomplishment because of how difficult it was to make. And that, from our Birdman discussion, just seems like a perfect segue to, of course he did this. Like, of course.
Yeah.
And it cements that he actually believes everything that Birdman the movie showed.
Yeah. So yeah, that really reminds me, and I wanted to say this before I forget. I watched this interview. It was like a roundtable interview between, and I recommend this to anybody really. We'll put it in the show notes. Roundtable interview discussion, and there was Innaritu, Ridley Scott, Tarantino, and at least two other directors who you would know their work. Did you see this, Scott? Did I point this to you?
You pointed it to me. I haven't had time to actually watch it yet,
well,
but I really want to.
Well. Anyway, Innaritu is talking about how hard it was to film The Revenant, and just kind of going on about it, and kind of off and on. Ridley Scott has been talking about how he kind of cut his teeth making commercials, actually. So he has this extremely process-oriented, almost cookie-cutter way of like taking the script and like just going through it and breaking it down and then anticipating what the problems are going to be. And long story short, the takeaway that I got was that Ridley Scott is the least emotive person in the world, but I got the sense
because he's a robot.
Because he's a robot, yeah. Because he's like a Scottish robot. But I still managed to get the sense that he was sort of rolling his eyes at Innaritu, because Ridley Scott is like he like with everything, he's like, okay, this is impossible to actually shoot because it's an alien bursting out of someone's chest in the middle of a mess hall on a spaceship or whatever. So obviously I'm going to have to use movie magic here, and I'm going to have to do it on time and under budget on top of that. so he's very businesslike, but he's also doing it. He's doing it very well. Everyone loves most of Ridley Scott's movies, and so the point that I'm trying to get at is like Ridley Scott heavily and shamelessly uses like movie magic tricks and shortcuts and just makes it easy on himself so that the picture comes out looking the way he wants it to. And he's kind of looking at across the table at Innaritu, who's like completely eschewing actually using the techniques of making movies for some reason, for some inexplicable reason, and insisting on like trudging out into the forest with a camera and just doing everything the hardest possible way. And it was just interesting to me to see the contrast between these two styles and to realize that there's a reason that people have innovated techniques of movie making to show things that are very difficult to show otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that's better filmmaking. Because if you're having to use every technique in your tool belt to take something that is fake, it's fake, and make it seem real, you're crafting a better film than running out into the middle of the wilderness and making Leonardo DiCaprio eat a freaking raw bison kidney. Like that to me is better filmmaking. And I have a lot of problems with Ridley Scott, but I would think that he's a better filmmaker than Innaritu, and I don't understand. I guess I do understand after seeing Birdman again exactly why he wants to do this, and it frustrates me when I see it kind of rewarded because I don't think it's good filmmaking. And it's funny because we get these. I read this great piece today on Screen Crush about the movie Spotlight and its director. McCarthy, and how it's not getting any fanfare, although it did get nominated, but it's called bland, boring direction because it's very procedural and simple, and but it was a great article because the point of the direction there was to be procedural and simple, and when the people that get attention are Innaritu when they do this big extravagant like look at how hard this was, and I would rather see a skilled director use all those tools on their tool belt any day of the week, and I think that's better. And I think that even goes into performances too, because I think Leonardo DiCaprio is going to win the Oscar for this movie, and I don't think he should. I think I walked out of that movie and I said to my girlfriend, I think the biggest hurdle, in my opinion, for him winning that Oscar is not the people he'd be up against in a category, but the fact that Tom Hardy in that movie acted circles around him. Mm-hmm. Because Tom Hardy is acting in that movie. He's inhabiting a character and becoming that character. Leonardo DiCaprio in that movie is Leonardo DiCaprio put into difficult wilderness situations.
Yeah, just suffering.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, so to me, if there's a scene in a script that says Hugh Glass eats a raw bison kidney or liver or whatever and gags because it's disgusting, and how they perform that scene is just by having the actor eat a raw bison kidney and gag on it, that's not acting.
That's just gagging.
Yeah, that's just doing the thing. That's not a performance. It's just it's fear factor. That's, I mean,
yeah, right.
So
I feel like if Innaritu was a painter, then he would take like the tiniest possible brush and the least expressive color palette and try to make something really impressive with it, and then just be like, look at how hard that was.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, it doesn't, I mean, I'm sure that was really hard and required a tremendous amount of technique, but I don't care ultimately.
Yeah, I don't care how hard it was.
I mean, I kind of care. I'm kind of impressed. I'm kind of impressed by effort. Everyone's kind of impressed by effort, but why are you handicapping yourself, I guess?
Right. Like, and to a certain extent, like, this is the confusing thing about this movie is the cinematography is beautiful. It's a beautiful film, but it's a gimmick. That natural stuff is a gimmick, and gimmicks I don't think can carry you the whole distance of the movie. I don't think the single take stuff in Birdman carried through the entire movie. I think it was cool at first, and then became kind of irrelevant and unnecessary and handicapping their ability to tell the story, and I think the same thing happens here. And I don't know. This movie is actually a very straightforward tale of a guy surviving and then seeking revenge. And Innaritu decided to take that and try to make something big and important in it. And I just don't think it works. And it does not surprise me, but it's continually getting these award nominations, and it has to be because of that conversation on how difficult it was. I mean, that's the only thing I can think of.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's frustrating sometimes, you know? It's like,
yeah,
I'm sure it's the level of frustrating that Innaritu feels when he's like, I'm right and all these people are stupid.
yeah. Well, it makes me wonder what the Academy is reacting to so positively, because like what we just said, he's basically shunning all of their tools. He's basically all the tools of Hollywood. He's basically saying, you guys are sellouts. Look, I just took a camera into the woods with Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, that's kind of a weird reason to give someone adulation, unless the movie's great, which you're telling me it isn't. So
I think it's this weird. I think we all want to think we're not part of a crowd, Like, I think it's the same reason why critics liked Birdman. I think it's like they see that something and they're like, oh yeah, all those other critics are like that. That's not me though. And so I think these people look at this and they say, yeah, that's the kind of filmmakers we are and we want to be, and that's what I think they latch onto. First of all, just like you said, they're impressed by the effort, and then they want to believe in the purity of art. And I'm making quotes with my fingers right now because,
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think that has to be it to me, and I think it's gonna win. And I'm gonna pretend Leo DiCaprio's Oscar was for The Wolf of Wall Street, because that is a movie in which he deserved to win and did not. This is not a movie in which he deserves to win. But I don't know. I wish there's one particular aspect of it that you and I have already talked about. I won't spoil on the podcast, but it's hilarious. The way this movie ends is almost as hilarious as the way Birdman ends, in a kind of...
It doesn't make sense.
In a kind of, what? Like, I laughed in the theater, and it was not an appropriate time to be laughing. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I suppose you'll get around to seeing it eventually, and you'll have to let me know if I was totally off base here. I have one of my friends that whose opinions I respect a lot, and he really liked this movie, and I don't know. I think I'm still working on my review, but I think that the first 45 minutes are really good, and then the movie kind of nosedives and turns slow and kind of loses its way. But Tom Hardy's really good. Tom Hardy's great. I don't think there's a Tom Hardy performance I haven't liked. I can't think of one.
I feel like we would like these movies better if we didn't know that they had received universal acclaim, which I hate to say that because it makes me sound like such a intellectual hipster, but like if I could just enjoy Birdman as like, wow, that had some really nice performances, and then just not think too much about it, but because I know it's so iconic now I'm kind of forced to think about it, and then I'm forced to see all the problems.
Yeah. I mean, I think Birdman, you're right. It was a movie with good performances. I didn't think it was very good, but it was relatively harmless. I don't think if it had been, I would have been a lot less annoyed with Birdman than I am with Academy Award Best Picture winner Birdman.
Yeah.
And I think that the same thing is true of The Revenant. I didn't hate The Revenant. I liked it better than Birdman. I think if it was a movie that just came and went like a lot of the other movies, I wouldn't even really be talking about it right now. It was like, that was not great. It was not bad, and then move on. But instead, it's getting this once again universal acclaim, and he's he's probably going to win Best Director again.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got that list. I think Best Director is McCarthy. I think Tarantino's on there. Ridley Scott got nominated for Best Director. And then I can't think of who else. But I think Innaritu is going to win it. I think he's the favorite right now.
And see,
George Miller got nominated too. And I think he should win it.
and what kind of message does it send to everybody else when somebody wins for something? I don't want to say that they shouldn't win for, but just that is, it's kind of an anomaly. Like, are all directors now going to suddenly say like, okay, we're filming this space movie, so let's all go get in a rocket, go to space, because we have to do it like Innaritu and do it realistic.
Yeah, you're right, and that's partially why I'm kind of happy about this Spotlight getting a director nomination, because like I was saying, that's a very not huge, extravagant, big noise direction job, and that seems to be the way it was going the past few years. I mean, like I think Gravity, which was amazingly directed, I think Cuarón won for director a couple years ago. But yeah, I mean, I don't know, and I think maybe we might be overreacting a little bit. I mean, I think once again the Academy Awards are kind of silly.
Yeah,
I think the Best Picture winner is often not the best movie of the year. I just pulled up the Best Picture winner for the past 10 years, and I'm looking at this list. We got Birdman, 12 Years a Slave, which was pretty good. Argo, which was okay. The Artist. Do you even remember The Artist? I don't think anyone remembers that movie.
no, it was okay.
The King's Speech, which I didn't think was that good.
No.
The Hurt Locker, which was pretty good. Slumdog Millionaire, which was good. It was a pretty harmless movie. No Country for Old Men, that was really good. That might have been the best movie of the year that year. So I just went back to 2008.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean maybe we're just overreacting, but yeah, I think it is kind of frustrating seeing that rewarded when, I mean, like, we both love Mad Max. I think Mad Max is a much better directed movie than either of these two films, and it's not going to win because it's not a take itself seriously, super impactful type of movie like these are. So I don't know. Maybe I'm just being pretentious now. I don't know.
Well, it's a weird kind of inverse pretension if it is, because I mean I think we both love that Mad Max can be. It sort of takes its silliness seriously, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does.
Whereas these movies are just like, yeah, these movies are definitely pretentious. I don't feel any reservation using that word.
Yeah.
Here. Whereas Mad Max is like, this is ridiculous, and now we're going to move forward with this, and we're not gonna wink at you. This is it. This is the movie we're making.
Yeah. It's
about this post-apocalyptic Australia with a guy who plays a guitar that's a flamethrower.
Yeah, I don't know. As we wrap this thing up, I'd be very interested to those of you out there that are listening to get your thoughts on these two movies. I think Birdman was a pretty divisive movie. I think a lot of people either really liked it or really hated it. So if you're one of those people that really, really liked that movie, I'd like to hear why. And the same thing if you've seen The Revenant and you like that. And if you agree with us and have some other points that we didn't bring up, I'd love to hear those too. I watched this movie again, and I don't think I won't be watching it a third time after that. I watched it very specifically for this, so and even then it was kind of a chore, so I won't watch it again. But Matt, you should see Revenant just to see it, so we can talk about it at a later date.
Yeah, I'm sure I'll see it when it comes out on the streamings.
Oh, Man, there was something I wanted to recommend on Netflix that I forgot about at the beginning, but I'm going to do it here at the end for the
All
people
right.
that are still listening.
That's fine. Let's change it up.
There's a 16-minute short that just came out, I think today or this week sometime, called World of Tomorrow.
Oh, I saw that. I love that.
Oh, sweet.
Wait a minute.
So you agree with me that it's amazing?
Well, it must have just come out on Netflix because it's been in existence for a while.
Yeah.
But yes.
Yeah, it's not a Netflix original. It's been out.
Yeah.
It just came to Netflix this week.
Yes. Did you like how I just said that I liked it before it was cool in a different way?
You just hipstered it up.
Yeah. I'm not doing too well.
But yeah, everyone should check this out. Literally 16 minutes of your time. It's this little hand-drawn, introspective kind of sci-fi look at the future in kind of a depressing way. But
it's just really impactful.
yeah, it really is, especially for it's little stick figures, and like still you like get out of that thing like, whoa.
So yes, that's awesome. And then you also have to go to YouTube and look up, and we're going to put this in the show notes too, the Simpsons Couch Gag that the same animator did.
Oh wow.
For the Simpsons, and it's like 4 minutes long. I believe it's the longest couch gag that was ever made, and it's extremely bizarre, and I love it.
That's awesome.
I've watched it like 10 times.
You're gonna have to link that to me right
I will
away.
do that.
We will link it for everyone on the show notes, but I want to watch this right away. So yeah, I mean that's all we had. Like I said, listening out there, agree, disagree with us on Birdman or The Revenant or Innaritu in general, let me know. I think next week, we're finally going to do our Quentin Tarantino podcast, where we're going to talk about all his movies, and it'll be me and Matt and podcast guest Michael, who doesn't like Tarantino as much as the two of us, so I think that's going to be a fun one. We're going to end up getting in some arguments. Michael and I chatted on GChat for like 5 minutes today and ended up yelling about Kill Bill, so I think the stage is set for a pretty interesting podcast, so check back next week for that on Friday, because that's our new podcast time. Matt, where can you be found on the internet? And do you have anything you want to plug?
I don't think so. Well, I published an article on Trump, The Art of the Deal today, which is Trump's, I think it's his first book, just because I was sort of curious to see what his personality was like prior to this whole presidency thing. Just kind of compare and contrast against the character that he's made himself into. And it was somewhat interesting. I can't say I actually recommend the book as an investment of your time. So save yourself some time and read my review.
There you go. Did you find any answers in that book as to who Trump is?
Yeah, I think he's someone who understands very well how to affect people's impressions of him on a subconscious level, which I think he's done a very good job of in his presidential campaign, and that's why he's doing so well.
Yeah. I wonder how the debate went. We're recording this while it's going on, so that's how little we care about the Republican debate that's going on right now. But
I might watch it so I can write an article on it, but probably not.
There you go. That'd be torturing yourself. Kind of like me watching Birdman.
Yeah. We do it for our art.
So where can you be found on the internet?
On Twitter at @MoreDenMail, which I will link in the show notes.
Great.
And Scott, where can you be found?
I am at ScottDaly85. That's DALY. And our website Twitter is at Daly Planet Films, which will have all our latest articles. Sometimes we just tweet from there from phone. So follow that if you want to stay up to date with us on everything that's going on our website, including Matt's new Trump article at www.dalyplanetfilms.com. And join us next week for Quentin Tarantino, where we honor the second greatest living filmmaker which I'm going to stand by that statement no matter what anyone else says. And
Okay.
we'll see you next week.